people were made to gather. Whether it is at work, in school, in your meetings, out with your friends, or at home with your family, you are surrounded by people. See, God has placed people around you so you might do for them what He has done for you. What is that, you ask? He left the 99 for you. He chased you down, picked you up, brushed you off, and carried you home, so you could freely be in His presence. He made you His friend. He gave you a new family and a future. He gave you a seat at His table. Now, who will you make room for? Who will you make room for?
How are you doing today? Thanks for answering. I got so nervous. I thought maybe you'd leave me hanging. I'm Vince. I'm the youth pastor here at CrossPoint Church. And today we conclude our series called The Table, which we have been in for the last few weeks. This series is all about making room in at your table, your actual table, your dinner table, your family, your friend group, whatever it is, to bring people who don't know Jesus into it so they might know Him because of you. It's been a really challenging series. I hope you've been following along. First week we gave you a challenge to set an extra place setting at your table and to pray for someone that you might be able to invite into your home, to be able to share your life with them and your relationship with them. And it's a really cool thing. So today we're going to dive right into that. We're going to really push us as a church to do those things. So before we get started, let's pray. God, we thank you for this awesome church family. We thank you that this is a place that is safe for us, a place where we are loved. God, I pray for boldness and for courage for us as a church. Give us strength and wisdom to bring people into your kingdom. God, give us the ability to love each other like you have loved us. God, help us to see that your church is meant to step into crazy situations and be your light to the world. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. So today, we're talking a bit about what does it look like to actually step into the lives of the people around you and be so much like Jesus that they're changed forever. I've entitled this talk, Our Mess is Blessed. Turn to someone next to you and say, our mess is blessed. Yeah, be excited about it because it's a fun thing. So we're going to have lots of fun today. The passage that Lynette read is from the book of Isaiah. Isaiah is a prophet. You might have heard that word before. A prophet, for our purposes, means this. A prophet is a person who either speaks to the people on behalf of God, like a megaphone. So he'd be like, Isaiah, tell everybody this or that. And he'd be like, everybody, this or that. You know, that's kind of like a megaphone. Or he would be almost like a phone line to God, right? He would talk to God on behalf of the people, right? So they would submit their compliments, complaints, and questions on some cards. He'd gather them up, go to God, and talk to him about it. So here's Isaiah talking on behalf of God. And here's what he says to the people of Jerusalem. That there's going to be a feast one day, really good feast with some really good wine, and I think he said Italian cured meats. I'm not sure how that translates. Dave can tell you more about that. I think it says prosciutto. So, but there's going to be this feast where there's no fear, there's no pain, there's no trouble. It's just being in the goodness and the blessing of God. And so when we sit at that table someday, as Christians, we believe that one day God is going to reconcile all things. He's going to make all things that were wrong right again, right? So there's going to be no sickness. There's going to be no pain. There's going to be no fighting. There's just going to be people together, full love and completion with God. And I can't wait for that day. But today, we still sit around tables, right? They're not as good as that one. They might have prosciutto, and they should. But we still sit at tables with people we care about and people we love. And so this morning we're talking about what does it look like to open up an extra spot at your table or a few spots and bring people into your home and love them the way Jesus did. And I believe when we do that, what we're actually doing is we're kind of celebrating the reality that God is working all things for good. We celebrate the reality that one day God is gonna fix every broken thing and heal every hurting heart. And we actually are we're agents of that, right? We take that and we carry that out to people. So I want a quick look at a passage. This passage we've been looking at Jesus and his conversations around tables. So if you have a Bible, why don't you open up to John chapter 13. John chapter 13. If you don't have it, it will be on the screens. And this passage I really love. I think is a lot of fun because it has a really intense. Oh, that's not right. That's tough to read. Can you change the background? Yeah. I'm here for you all. Here to help. Yeah, here for you. So this passage is great because it starts out like this. Jesus is talking to his disciples. His disciples are the guys who hung out with him for 3 years, and they had lots of meals together and did lots of awesome stuff together. And he says, I will be with you only a little bit longer. As I told the Jewish leaders of the community, you will search for me, but you can't come where I am going. Right? So he says, hey, everybody, I'm heading out soon. You're not going to be able to follow. But then he drops the biggest thing ever, and he says, so now I'm going to give you a new commandment. Love each other. Which sounds great. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for another will prove to the world that you are followers of me. And that's what Jesus says to his disciples. He says that to Peter and the gang. And Peter's response, you'd think they would be like, wow, that's intense. Yeah, Jesus, yeah, that's so cool. Love each other like you love us. But Peter actually responds by saying, yeah, but where are you going? He just totally brushes that whole new commandment, change the world kind of thing. He's like, yeah, but where are you going? Right? It's so funny. But the cool thing is that in this time, Jesus is telling his people to love others. And to love others like he's loving them. And that's so interesting to me. See, the world at that time is just as divided as ours is, right? We have lots of things that divide us today, whether it's race or political views or just your demographic, your socioeconomical status, whatever it is. We have things that create contextual separation. And their day was no different, right? And in their context, they have people who are slaves and people who are slave owners. They have people who love the Roman government and people who hate the Roman government. They have a huge separation, class separation between men and women. But this picture that God has created involves Jesus coming to earth, living as a man, and people of all contexts, backgrounds, beliefs, hopes, and dreams coming together to believe in Jesus. And that little family goes out into the world as what we call the church, right? And the Greek word ekklesia means a collection or a gathering, right? It doesn't mean a building. It's a group of people. And this movement called Christianity, which you're going to hear more about in our next series, Irresistible, went on to change the world, not by being super cool or trendy or dressing really nice, but just because they went to people and said, here's what we saw. This Jesus guy did all of this amazing stuff, and he died for us, and now we can have a relationship with God because of that. And they just went out and told people, and they loved people. See, it would be a lot easier if Jesus had said, I have a new commandment for you, to love each other. Because then we get to define what that means, right? If it was my definition of love, I'd be knocking it out of the park every day. I'd love that person, I love that person. I don't really like that person. I'll stay away from them. I'm not going to love them. The other week on a Sunday morning, I was driving to church, and I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts, which I don't do, but it was on the way. And the reason I don't do drive-through stuff as much as I can is because I feel like no matter how well I've prepared my statement for the person at the window, they always need to hear it again. And as a communicator, that just, for some reason, it just really destroys my morning. And so this morning, I was like, you know what? I don't have the time. I'm going to go for the convenience, and I'm just going to dictate as well as I can. So I go up to the window, and I say, good morning. I'm going to have a medium iced coffee with a light amount of cream and some pumpkin swirl flavoring. To which the lady kindly replies, yeah, what did you want? Well, if I'm making the list of people I love, you're off, right? And then I went to church. But it's like that sometimes, right? There are people who wrong you, people who you agree with, people who you like, people you want to be with. And so if we could define it, we have a pretty good idea of how we define it. And Jesus' day is no different. There are people who didn't want to love people of a different race. If you've ever heard the story of the Good Samaritan, it's literally a story about someone was racist and they didn't help someone who was hurting of a different race. They left them to die. They crossed the street and walked away. It illustrates that point by saying someone of a different race came and loved someone. Sorry, that was my fault. But the point is this, your first teaching note, that our love for others should be defined by Jesus, not by our preference. Our love for others should be defined by Jesus, not our preference, right? We should love the people who Jesus says we need to love and love them the way Jesus says we should love them. Not just based on, well, do they have the same hobby as me, or do they believe the same things as me, or did they vote for the same person as me? The love for Jesus goes beyond those things. There's no convenience about it. And so when we look at how are we going to love people like Jesus loved people, well, first what we have to do quickly is look to the scriptures and see how did Jesus love us, right? Because that's what he says. He says, love other people the way I've loved you. So Philippians 2, verses 5 through 8, here's what it says. And I want you to picture just this progression that Jesus goes through from exalted in heaven to becoming someone who serves people to someone who dies. And just see the humility that takes. So you must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. So Jesus, being stored up in heaven, he gives that up. He doesn't cling to it. He comes down, he puts on humanity. He walks in our shoes. He walks in our mess, right? And he loves us so much that he doesn't just become human. He goes from divine king to human to someone who serves people, a foot washer. And then from that, he even goes to the cross for us, right? He takes on our sin, our punishment, and says, no, I'll take care of that because I love you. That's insane. I'm not doing that for the person at the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru, right? I'm not humbling myself to that level. And I hope over the past few weeks, if you've been in church with us, you've been slowly developing a burden for the empty places at your table. I hope that you've created some space in your routine to think, who's in my sphere of influence, right? Who do I work with? Who do my kids, what parents do my kids play sports with their kids, or who am I running into over and over again that I don't know if they know Jesus, or I know they don't know Jesus, and we just kind of have a nice conversation and move on. I hope you've been developing a burden or a specific name that's coming on your heart of someone you can invite to your table, someone you can invite into a picture of how to love people. I know it's scary and I know it's not easy to do, but I think we as a church need to own it, right? And we need to do it really well. And let me tell you more about that. So each person in this room has a very complicated life, right? Hobbies, job, kids, all that stuff. And we all have our own burdens. Do you know what I mean when I say a burden, right? Maybe for you, there's a specific sin in your life that is just killing you. Maybe it's a health issue for you or someone in your family. Maybe you've lost somebody. Maybe you struggle with anxiety or depression. And here's what the writer of the book Galatians, which is a letter to some friends, he says this: Dear brothers and sisters, if another person is overcome by sin, you who believe in God should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Share each other's burdens, and in this way, obey the law of Christ. If you think you are too important to help someone, you are only fooling yourself. You are not that important. Pay careful attention to your work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done and won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. As a staff, we do Bible study together on Tuesdays. And we went through this passage, and we started to develop this joke. This has been a really crazy few weeks for us, and we read this passage, and it just kind of reminded us that we're here for each other, Even though we have our own routine and our own things we got to take care of, we got to be here for each other. So we kind of have a running joke where we remind each other. And we're like, hey, don't worry, you're not that important. That's what we say to each other. And it sounds really bad, and it is kind of bad, I guess. You can cut that out of the video. But it's our cute way of saying, like, no matter what, we're here for each other, right? We're not more important than the other person. And so it can sound scary. Like, okay, we have to bear each other's burdens. And that includes the people in this room, but also the person you're going to invite to your table. See, what Jesus did is he wasn't afraid of our mess. Like Julie said earlier, like, he didn't wait for you to clean up and then step into your life, right? The very moment he was dying for you, you didn't believe in him, and you weren't acting right. But he did it because he loves you. We all have burdens. We all go through seasons of hurt. We all go through times of pain and suffering. And it's our job to be there. So the people in your row, it's your job to be there for them. And the people who are going to surround your table, the people you run into at work, it's your job to be there for them too. Because the Bible says that apparently, if we love each other so well, and we do it well enough, that people outside are going to want to be in here, right? It's like a great party's going on, and you walk by the window, and you're like, man, how do I get in there? Apparently, according to what Jesus has told us, is that if we love people the way he loved us, that it's enough to change the world. Need is the essence of our faith. You needed something you couldn't do for yourself, right? We were trapped in sin and in pain, but Jesus steps into our mess, and he addresses it. Sometimes the goal is to have a white t-shirt kind of faith. We want to have a really clean faith, right? You've probably seen that, like people, like we wear nice clothes to church and we talk nice to church and we say that awful word and we're like, I'm fine. God is good. Life is good. We're all good. Praise is up, Most High, right? Like we kind of try and wear that white t-shirt kind of faith, but you are not called to that. You need to start looking to people who have a burden going on. So maybe there's someone at your church, right? And they come in and you're hanging out after work and you're talking and you're like, listen, man, I know you struggle with anxiety. I know it's so tough. I know when you walk into a room like this, you just want to run out, but you always got a place next to me. No matter what's going on, you need me, I'm there. Call me, I'll show up. And then you get into their mess, even if it's like cold and slimy. Oh, God. Hot. And so you start to wear the mess of other people, right? And then maybe you leave church after someone has done that for you and there's someone at your work. Are you dripping? All right. And you're like, listen, I know you got someone in the hospital, and that means maybe it's going to be you. Okay. But I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to visit you in the hospital. I'll be right outside. If they don't let me in, I'll be outside waving my phone, being like, I got you. I'm going to step into your mess, and I'm going to love you until we see a miracle. And then you really get in there, and see you, right? And you start to wear the mess of other people, and we all start to wear the mess of other people. And you might say, well, isn't that uncomfortable? You're not having a clean faith? But I'm going to walk into work Monday feeling a lot better than someone with a boring white t-shirt. We can walk into work on Monday feeling a lot better than someone with a boring white t-shirt. So here's what I'm trying to say to you, is to take the time to love the people in your row and love the people in your work or in your hobbies, because our love is dangerous when it's demonstrated. That's your next teaching note. Our love is dangerous when demonstrated, right? It's going to compromise your religious paradigms, your social structure, right? Because you might walk into someone's mess like this and they didn't vote for who you vote for, or they come from a different background. They don't believe the same things you believe. But apparently, if we do this well enough, people will come to know Jesus. And we can change this church, our community, and the world. Listen, don't settle for a white t-shirt faith. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Don't be the person who says, I'm sending you thoughts and prayers. Why don't you bring those thoughts and prayers to the hospital where that person's at? Why don't you bring those thoughts and prayers to someone's home? Why don't you invite them over for dinner? And if their life is just going into a mess, you can at least bring them in for a nice meal and someone to listen to. When people who don't believe in Jesus see you be there for them and pray with them, and their circumstances change because of it, wow. I have a friend I've been friends with since high school. And we talk on the phone, through college. He knew what I was about, what I was doing with my life, and he doesn't believe in Jesus. But one night he called me. He said, listen, things are not good. And I know you've got this source that you draw on. Can you just tell me everything about Jesus? I just want to hear. And that was such a humbling moment for me. He didn't accept Jesus, but just that he saw the community I was a part of. He visited me and my friends at college, and we were just being Christians who were nice to each other, but it was nice enough, different enough, that he wanted to be a part of it. So here's the last teaching note. There is blessing when we wear each other's messes like Jesus did. There is blessing when we wear each other's messes like Jesus did. I promise you. Imagine if each family in this room invited someone over for dinner and then invited someone from dinner after a few times to our church. Imagine how many more people would be in this room. Imagine how nice it could look like this. So here's what I'm going to challenge you to do right now. If you're sitting with your family, I want you to decide on a person who you're going to invite over for dinner. Someone you work with, someone you know through sports or whatever. You can take out your phone right now. I'm taking mine out. And if you feel comfortable enough, you can just text someone, hey, do you want to have dinner soon? I'm texting my friend from Reading who does not believe in Jesus. And we're going to have dinner soon, hopefully. And if, sorry, it's really hard to text and talk. That might have just said, do you dinner have sometime soon? But whatever. I sent it, okay? You can do that right now. You're allowed to have your phone out in church. Or if you're with your spouse, you can lean over right now and say, yeah, we're inviting Jerry over for dinner. I'll talk to you later. I'm just encouraging you today to push the first domino. Push it right now so that when you leave church and you get wrapped up in kids nap time or family coming over, there's still that text chain going and you can follow up. And so if we're going to love people out there, and if you're going to invite someone over from work or from school over for dinner and bring them into your life and then bring them into your church, the one thing that needs to happen is that we need to love the people in our row like that too, right? You need to love the people in your row, or the row in front of you, or the row behind you, people you don't even know. You need to love them like Jesus has loved you. So when we bring people into this room, they never want to leave, right? And if you're worried about that, if that concerns you, if your first thought is, yeah, but what about us? How do we get fed? There's two things. We bear each other's burdens. We build each other's faith. And I also believe that the best food for your soul is on the front lines of the faith. I mean, when you step into someone's life and you see a miracle happen because you were praying, or you see someone get saved because you were able to be like Jesus just enough for them to know who he is, that stuff will restore your soul, and you will walk into church on Sunday covered in your mess and happy to be a part of it. Our mess is blessed when we do it like Jesus. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for loving us. Thank you so much for stepping into our mess, God. We did not deserve a place at your table. But you went out and found us and picked us up, brushed us off, and brought us back. And God, I just pray that you would give each person in this room courage. Courage to just be a little more open than they normally would. Courage to say a little more than they'd usually say. And make the time available they would never have. God, I pray for miracles in this place, that people would come to this church, love you because of it, and be sent out for you. In Jesus' name, amen.